Take a deep breath, take the higher road. That's what they always say, as if they know the way. They won't take it from me. But don't ever doubt yourself, 'cause life ain't just a dream. You made your own, so kick and scream. The people will act with a never-ending force. You never had the chance, so what you waiting for? The day has come, my friend, 'cause this is war. It's time and this is war.
There are moments in life that stop us in our tracks. Moments when science says impossible and faith whispers, watch this. Today we revisit a story that captured hearts around the world. A story of resilience, love, and divine intervention. When I first spoke with Miracle Brophy, she told us how her husband Drew, a healthy, vibrant artist and surfer, was placed on a ventilator in a coma for 28 days and given little chance to survive. Doctors said he wouldn't make it through the night, but God had other plans. Drew's recovery wasn't just medical, it was miraculous. It challenged the system that failed him, and it reminded us of the sacred power of love, advocacy, and unwavering faith. Today, Drew joins me to share his side of the story, the part that only he can tell. From darkness to light, from paralysis to painting again, this is more than survival. It's redemption. This is the miracle of Drew Brophy. You're listening to Nurses Out Loud on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. Before we get started today, I do want to encourage our listeners, if you have questions or comments, or perhaps you want to share your own experiences with what you're seeing on the front lines of healthcare, you can now submit those to us directly by visiting our website at nursesoutloud.com. We would love to hear from you. We encourage all of you to engage in the battle and find your voice in this fight. But until you are able to do that, we will continue to be that voice for you. Joining me today is Drew Brophy, a professional artist whose work is inspired by his love for surfing, nature, and family. Through Drew's eyes, everything is alive with a powerful, unseen energy, and he paints that energy into his art to reveal our deep connection to nature and the divine. His fascination with weather, solar physics, and ancient history has led him around the world, studying ruins and exploring the wisdom of past civilizations. Drew's geometric paintings are his interpretations of the knowledge left behind by these ancient cultures. In 2021, after contracting COVID and being placed on a ventilator, Drew had a near-death experience that transformed his understanding of life. He emerged with a profound awareness. You are not the body. You are the energy that flows through it. The truth he was shown is simple. There is nothing to fear. There is no death. We are all one. You are the light. Drew, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Yeah, nice to be here with you all.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming and taking the time to be here. You know, many of my listeners remember we had Maria on talking about her experience in advocating for you, and that was a couple months ago now. But we really wanted to get you on here because this, like I said in my opening, this is the part of the story that really only you can tell.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a witness for all the people who died.
Yeah.
And, for all the medical professionals that know what goes on when you're in this situation. And I'm an open book. I'm just here to help.
And I appreciate this, especially, being a nurse. I'm a nurse that worked in the ICU, and I cared for many of these patients that were in the same situation as you. And, I've always wanted to hear their perspective of what it was like for them. So this is something that's really important to me to understand as a nurse that cares for these patients, to understand what that experience was like for you. But if you would just we can start at the beginning, and if you'll take us back just to those first days before you were hospitalized, what were you feeling physically? What do you remember about kind of that lead up to the moment where everything just kind of started to spiral?
Well, of course, this period of time in COVID was, you know, so frightening for everyone, including the hospital staff. When I first got admitted to the hospital, I was not afraid. I just thought I was going to be treated and released. Um, I was not really having trouble breathing. I was really just really tired, and um, they said my oxygen level was low. So when I went to the hospital, um, I thought I was just going in to get treated and be released, but that's not what happened. Um, I was when I arrived, they were waiting for me at the door. They escorted me in while my wife parked the car. And, I thought she was going to meet me inside. That's not what happened either. I was immediately taken in and given a scan of my lungs. And I can remember them saying when they're rolling, they said, "This one doesn't look good." Um, they were talking amongst themselves well behind me. Uh, and I could hear them. And they said, "Okay, we better take them to the COVID unit." And the COVID unit was, a set up place that was, not in the normal hospital. It was kind of in the basement with plastic on the walls. And then that's when I knew it was serious. I never got to see my wife again. Um, she was not allowed inside. I was an instant prisoner.
At that point, had they tested you for COVID?
I was tested for COVID at the urgent care that I went to first.
Okay.
And my they said yes, I had COVID, but more importantly, they said my blood oxygen level was severely low. Um, they were thinking that there was something wrong with the machine because it was so low. They didn't understand how I walked in there.
So at that point, when they are kind of ushering you into this COVID unit, and you're realizing that your wife is not going to be allowed to come to be with you to advocate for you, is that kind of the point where you realize like something's not right about this care that's being given? Maybe this isn't just about this virus, but maybe it's about just kind of blindly following protocols.
Yeah, at that point in time, I just trusted that they were going to take care of me, and they were, but it did seem like there was confusion over what should be done. Some nurses told me to lay prone. Some nurses told me to sit up. They had an alarm on my bed. I felt like getting up and walking around, but they would not let me. Um,
Really?
it just seemed very confusing because I was getting mixed signals about what was happening and what was the proper thing to do, including just the way to lay. And so I was laying face down for a long time, and then somebody else would say, "No, you need to be sitting up." Um,
Well, a
so
lot of that was that they were changing the protocols constantly, and that was another one of my big questions with all of this,
yes,
is that everything was changing. Every policy that we had followed in healthcare for just years and years, all of a sudden we threw all of the infection control things out the window. We were wearing the same N95 mask throughout the unit, and we were caring for COVID patients and non-COVID patients and wearing the same mask from
yeah,
room to room, which doesn't, infection policy would never have allowed for that. So things like that didn't make sense. And the protocols that we were doing, like the proning, for example, which is where you're told to lay on your stomach, you would oxygenate better that way. One week we're doing that, the next week we're doing something completely different. And they start pointing to, well, evidence based practice dictates this or that. And things would change constantly. So you can imagine, and I can imagine the confusion, the level of confusion that your healthcare providers had, and that can't be a good feeling for you as a patient.
no. And I just remember it was dark. The whole place was dark. And, there were there just wasn't any sunlight, and my room was always dark, and it just seemed very chaotic, and just and there again, you're sick, so you're just trying to do your best. And I think I was in that for 7 to 10 days before everything went wrong.
Yeah. And I can't, I don't recall. Were you given remdesivir?
Yes, I was, and
I figured. Mm.
it made me really sick, sicker than I already was.
Yeah.
And that at some point towards the end of this, I did feel much better. Um, and I, was muscling through it. You have to realize I was a very strong athlete.
Mhm.
And so, I'd never really would get sick. And so being sick was something foreign to me. And so at some point I started feeling better and I sat up and I started breathing. It felt good to breathe. I could take a deep breath. And nobody told me not to do this. And the nurses were looking at me through the glass. And but they would have to, suit up in order to come into my room. So they weren't like communicating with me very often. That was the other thing. Everybody had to suit up, and
Yeah.
when they entered my room, and then take everything off when they left it. So it was a real problem. And that's probably why they left me alone so much, and didn't interact with me. I wasn't told a lot of information, but that was the point where when I started taking big, deep breaths, my lungs tore, and that's what created the problem. So, they said that since I had COVID pneumonia, that my lungs were like wet paper, super fragile. And when I started feeling better and I took big, deep breaths, my lungs couldn't handle it. And so they tore apart and began to collapse. And they said that what was happening is they were sticking together and they had a big blower on me. They put my oxygen, I was on like 3 liters of oxygen, not much. But after this tear, they put me on 100% oxygen and then a blower. And the blower was really loud.
Mm.
And um, that's when the doctor came in and he just said, "Sorry, Mr. Brophy, we need to put you into a coma right away." And I said, "Well, that means a ventilator." And he said, "Yes." He goes, if you don't, I said I didn't want to go on a ventilator. And he said, "Well, if you don't do this, you're going to die, and you're going to die really soon. You're probably going to have a heart attack or a stroke, and we're not going to be able to save you." And so I didn't know that, by refusing the ventilator, that they were going to institute a DNR. But I,
What? Wait a minute. Back up. So that you're telling me that if you had refused the ventilator, they were going to make you a DNR against your will?
well, he didn't say that, but he said that we're not going to be able to save you. He said it's going to be an awful way to die.
Mm.
But we found out since that was what was happening. So I don't know if that would have happened to me if I started having a heart attack, but we found out now that that's what was happening.
There was
That
a lot of pressure on patients and family members. I do remember that from when I worked in COVID, and that I can remember them asking us to call and pressure the families into changing these patients that were on the vents to DNRs because if they were coding and we were trying to save them over and over again, they wanted us to continue to pressure them, the family, to make patients DNRs, which I thought was completely unethical and wrong, particularly since, like, as you mentioned, you're a young and healthy guy, right? And so were most of my patients.
and I asked him. I said, "Well, what are my chances of surviving if I go on the ventilator?" And he said, "Not good."
Mhm.
I said, "Well, can you give me a number?" And he said, "Less than 20%, if that."
Yeah, that's true.
And I said, "Well, I would rather fight." And he was disappointed. Um, and I liked my doctor. I felt sorry for him at this point that he had to tell me all this information. Um, I really hadn't had time to think about being sorry for myself. Um, I thought about my wife and my family, and he urged me to go on the ventilator, and I still said no. And he said, "Okay, well, I'm moving you to a room with a window so you can say goodbye to your family."
Wow.
So they instantly started preparing a room for me to be moved into with a window so I could say goodbye to them through the window. And I think that's when it really hit home that, he was, you never prepared for this moment when the doctor's going to tell you that you're going to die. And you could see it on his face. I mean, he was brokenhearted,
Yeah.
and the nurses were brokenhearted. Other people had already died around me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is happening. This is crazy. So my family, not really nobody was really there, just my wife and my sister. And they came that night. The doctor said I was probably going to die that night, but I didn't. I managed to stay alive all night. And that next morning, I realized that I could not stay awake forever. It got to the point where I was sipping air, and people just don't understand what it's like to not be able to breathe.
Yeah.
I do because I was a big wave surfer and I was held down for minutes at a time. And, um, you have to be calm and, trust yourself. But at some point, you got to breathe. And um, it got to the point where I could not take a breath. There was no pressure. Um, and so it's a very odd feeling. And so I said, I guess I got to take the ventilator. And the staff, my doctor was gone. Another doctor was there. He was relieved that I was going to go on the ventilator. Um, I was almost totally unable to take a breath. I got to make one phone call so I could say goodbye to my son and my mother. Luckily, it was Thanksgiving Day and they were all in one place. And I wanted to talk to more people, but I couldn't. And I, you know, was only about able to speak for about 20 seconds. And looked at my wife through the window, my sister, and the nurse was crying. Everybody's crying. And they put me out. And they told me that this was it.
Oh.
So, you know, just that alone, that the urgency and the way that types of things going, I just want people to know that you never know how things are going to happen for you. And you need to prepare yourself now for the type of person that you are so you don't panic and so that you can handle what's
Right.
happening.
Right.
I'm
Nobody
lucky.
expects these things to happen. I always urge people to have a plan in place.
And, you need to live your life to the fullest because in that moment, you don't want to be filled with regret and sorrow. And I feel very lucky that I had no regrets. I, was prepared. And I felt like I was like on the launch pad of one of Elon Musk's rockets or something, that they were getting ready to light it. And there was a good chance that it was going to explode and I was going to be gone. Or I was going to have a magnificent journey. And I just watched the world fade away.
Wow. Maria, when I spoke with her, she described how she was just fighting, just tooth and nail to save you. She was doing so many things. And looking back now, how aware were you of what was happening around you as far as her efforts?
Well, the last thing I said to her was, I got this. I love you.
Yeah.
I was totally prepared to survive it. It's a weird balance between the will to live in total surrender. And so I trusted that she was going to be fighting on the inside or the outside, and I was going to be fighting on the inside. I knew I had given her, the power to make all the decisions for me. That's an important one. And she fought for my life while I was in that coma. She fought for high doses of vitamin C, which we're convinced that that's probably what allowed me to survive it. Also, my physical body that I had built in my life, you know, allowed me to survive it. Um, I weighed about 210 when I went in, and I lost over 100 pounds
Wow.
in the coma. So my body had the energy to absorb that loss, and I didn't have any other medical conditions that could have complicated things. So if anybody was going to survive it, it was going to be me. I think my wife knew that, so she did everything she could to fight. But it was almost like the staff had already seen so many people die, they were just ready to give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
they need
that's true.
and they needed the beds for other people. And I was considered, that I was gone already.
Right.
A few days into it, they said that I was dead and they needed to prepare to take me off the life support. And my wife refused. And I'm very happy that she did because I did survive.
Yeah. And
Um,
you were ventilated for 70 days, and
yes.
that is an eternity in ICU time, an absolute eternity. But can you describe what you remember from that period, if anything at all? Did you experience awareness, dreams, or any sense of connection beyond the physical world while you were in this coma?
Yeah. The I don't know exactly when it happened in the coma. It could have happened instantly, but I was just released. I was released from the body. It was just so amazing. I can't hardly explain it to people. There's no words, but I instantly just popped out and just was like, "Oh, thank God, I'm out of that thing."
Yeah.
Um, I was already well above the hospital, like in the clouds. It's like I shot out, and it was like an expansion, like you're expanding exponentially. It all happened so fast. The it was seamless, like waking from a dream. And all I could think was, thank God I'm out of the body. And how did I ever forget? The experience just was, uh, I mean, like I said, it's so hard to explain, but it felt like a flow, like a river of light. I guess you could say a tunnel. I was instantly greeted, mainly by feeling like a remembering, and it just kept coming. It was instantly overwhelming. It felt like millions of children tickling me, welcoming me home. Little balls of light, like reabsorbing into me as I grew.
And you weren't frightened by any of this.
No, it was pure ecstasy.
It's amazing.
At some point, I had like a bigger light absorb me, and it felt like my father picking me up as a child. And I thought, oh, thank God he's got me. I mean, you could interpret that as being God, or to me, it was like my father. And that's really when I surrendered into it. It just was peace and bliss. The thing is I felt enormous. I felt like I was everything and everyone. And I just want people to know that I don't pretend to understand what this experience was, but it was there. It was timeless. At some point, I felt like I'd forgotten everything about this place. And in the moment when I thought I was gonna, whatever I was disappearing and becoming everything, I was told to come back. It was very clear, stern. It says, "We're sorry we had to do this to you, but you're gonna have to go back. There's no time to start over. You have to go back to that body. Maria and Dylan are waiting for you." And I felt terrible because I had forgotten. I had forgotten about this place. I instantly remembered and said, "Oh yeah, I'll go back." Like I was signing up for like a military mission or something. But I don't know how to get there. I don't know where that place is. What you got to understand is on this place, it's so big that this life here seems minute, like nothing. They set me adrift like into nothing, which seemed like forever. And at some point, it felt like I was being sucked down a drain. And that's when I got sent back to my body. I can only say coming back was one of the most awful things I ever experienced. Just dense, heavy, just like I was being squished into a tiny bottle. When I woke up, I didn't realize I was paralyzed. I thought I was in restraints. I thought they sent me to the wrong place. It was dark. Nothing made sense. I'd forgotten everything. The ICU rooms are dark. They had plastic on the walls. Machines are beeping. There's little lights. It was like a nightmare. I can remember the first person I saw. I didn't recognize it as a person. They were covered in the paper gowns, gloves, mask, face shield. It was dark. I didn't know what it was. It was a nurse probably coming to do something to me. Those first days were very bewildering. I thought they were trying to kill me. I didn't, you couldn't see faces. So it was very scary. They had me on lots of drugs, fentanyl, propofol, Versed, pentobarbital. It's maddening. The drugs are maddening.
Yeah.
You feel like you're melting.
Wow.
Um, at some point, they still thought I was going to die, so they let my wife in again to see me. And she broke protocol and took her face shield and mask off, and I saw her face. That was the first time I realized that I was alive. And then the nightmare really kind of just kept going from there. Um, yeah.
You know, your experience, I, It's just so, I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm nearly speechless just listening to your story, um, which is beautiful but painful all at the same time.
Yeah, I don't want people to be afraid. The Whatever happened to me in the coma was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And I chose to come back. I agreed to it. And I'm convinced that it's the thing that allowed me to survive. Because the days after waking up on that ventilator were the most brutal things I could ever imagine happening to a person. But it just shows you that the human mind, the human body, and the human spirit is so much more powerful than you ever dreamed. You've just never been tested. I have, and I found out in those darkest moments. I would just say to myself in my mind, I am the light. I am the light. I am the light. I could hear the nurses and doctors saying that I probably wouldn't survive the night. And in my mind, I'd be saying, I can keep this body alive forever, and you can't kick me out of it. That's how powerful I felt as the light. It was like I was in a dead body, keeping it alive, like a little spark inside.
Yeah. With your energy, you were able to do that.
What
We're up.
people don't, what people don't tell you is when you're in a coma for that long, these drugs are slowly killing you.
Yeah.
You're only supposed to be in them for a couple days to a week max before damage is being done. The fact that I didn't wake up with brain damage or organ damage or missing limbs is utterly amazing.
Oh, I agree with you, particularly since you were made to go through the course of remdesivir, which we know causes so many complications, including organ failures and strokes and so many other devastating effects of that drug. We are up against a break, but we're going to come back in just a moment and we are going to share the rest of your story. America Out Loud Talk Radio plays on the iHeartRadio network. You can also listen on our media player from any web browser, anywhere in the world. We have the best in-class apps available on Apple, Android, or Alexa, 24/7 Great Talk Radio. All of our shows go to podcast the following day. You can hear them on apps such as Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeart Podcasts, and many more. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts for me. Don't forget to check out our online store at americaoutloud.shop, where you can find all of the products that we represent on our network at a discounted rate, including an incredible line of products from Chemical Free Body. Unlike the majority of supplements you'll find on the market today, with Chemical Free Body, you won't have to worry about harmful ingredients, binders, fillers, or flow agents. Their ultra-safe breakthrough nano-silver technology destroys pathogens, balances the microbiome, and boosts immunity. All of these products are proudly made in the USA and are backed by an unheard of double your money back guarantee. I've made a twice daily Green 85 drink part of my routine, which has led to a decrease in belly bloat and an increase in my energy throughout the day. Use promo code OUTLOUD to save 20% off the Healthy Gut Bundle. I'll catch you this out of this break. Stay with us.
Looking for a fluoride-free, peptide-based toothpaste? Try Smile from the Wellness Company. This doctor-formulated formula combines powerful peptides, remineralizers, and probiotics to rebuild gum tissue, strengthen teeth, and fight harmful bacteria, all with a refreshing mint flavor. Visit twc.health/outloud and use code OUTLOUD for 20% off your first order.
Struggling with your health, energy, and constantly feeling hungry? Want to save money on the rising cost of groceries and dramatically improve your health? Go to chemicalfreebody.com/outloud today. Get nature's super multivitamin, doctor-formulated Green 85 juice formula. Empower your immune system, cut your grocery bill, and save 20% on your first order.
And I quote, "You and I have a rendezvous with destiny." We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth. Or we will sentence them to take the first step into 1,000 years of darkness. Well, those are the words of number 40. Ronald Reagan, shine bright as America approaches 250 years. AmericaOutloud.news is that place to awaken your heart, soul, and mind to the out loud truth.
Welcome back to Nurses Out Loud on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. Wherever you're listening from today and whatever you're doing, I thank you for giving me the gift of your time. Be sure to make AmericaOutloud.news your daily stop for all the latest news and happenings. We all must do our part and share the stories, the articles, the podcasts, and videos so we can help secure America's future. If you're just joining us, I've been talking with artist, surfer, and COVID survivor, Drew Brophy. Let's jump right back in. Drew, the first half of the show, you've been sharing your incredible experience that you had as someone who survived not only COVID, but the protocols that we learned were very harmful to patients, particularly the remdesivir, which we saw do a lot of damage. And as you alluded to during our conversation, you knew that many of the patients around you were not surviving. That was my experience as well. Is most of my patients died. I worked throughout the height of the pandemic, and I can remember 2 of all of our patients. I remember 2 that survived. That's all. I had to leave in the middle because I couldn't take it anymore, because I realized what was happening with the medications we were using, with these protocols, with the ventilation, a lot of times unnecessarily, that we were murdering patients. I haven't found a nice way to say it. But that's what was happening inside of these hospitals, and I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't take part anymore, and I had to leave. So to hear your perspective is it's incredible to me, and it's, like I said, it's a beautiful story to listen to what you experienced, kind of, in the middle, if you will, of between this life and the next, and just how beautiful that was for you to experience. But it's also just so painful to me to listen to what so many people that didn't have the opportunity to survive, that really never should have been put into that position to begin with. So I appreciate you taking the time to share with our listeners, because I think that this is a story that people need to hear.
Yes, like I said, I'm a witness for all the people who died. And I don't know how anybody would have survived what happened to me. I think all the people praying for me had a big part of it. I think, there was people in the hospital who knew me. I think they had a big part of it. My wife, who never gave up, was a big part of it. And, certain nurses at different times, just took care of things that maybe weren't the protocol. I had so many things happen to me. I mean, we could talk for hours and hours about all the things that happened. And, it's demoralizing hearing people die around you every day. I would pray for them. They don't tell you after, being in a coma that you're going to be paralyzed and locked in your body.
Right.
But I could hear everything. I was aware. It took weeks before I could move my hand and try to write. I would tell them, I'm here. I'm here. Because it looked like I was dead. I was 50 years old, and it looked like I was 90.
Yeah. I think that's something that, and we talked a little bit about this before we went to air, but That's something that concerns me as a nurse. I think, and I try to impart this on other nurses, when you go into care for a patient who is in a comatose state, that we're still going in and we're still announcing our presence, and we're still, letting patients know. I would tell my patients all the time, I would hold their hand, I would talk to them, I would let them know, I'm a nurse, you're in a hospital, you're safe, you're okay. Not everybody does that. And I have a real problem with that, because can you imagine if you're even peripherally aware and you just have people coming in and they just start working on you? You don't know who they are. You don't know what's happening. They just start doing their task, whatever that task may be. And how frightening that must be. Did you experience things like that?
Yeah, so it's important for the nurses and the doctors, but more so the nurses because you see them more, to look at the patient. So many times the nurses didn't even look at me. I was a dead man. They didn't want to look at me. There were ones that would look at me and say, I got you. It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Telling them information, the patient information, you got to keep in mind that, you have to, know that they don't know what's going on. So you have to tell them. It's very frustrating to lie there and see them doing things to you and you don't know what it is. I had nurses cry at my bedside at night, thinking that I could not hear them, and they were crying at the horrors that they were witnessing. I had nurses quit mid shift because it became too difficult. I saw all kinds of things. Then they were short staffed, they were afraid. I mean, it was very scary for everyone involved. A horrible situation that everybody was put into. Things that really helped were my wife was putting pictures of me healthy on the walls, informing the nurses of who I was,
Yeah.
to give me a name. I can remember at some point, nurses started looking at me more, talking to me more. They believed that I would survive. It was just so, I mean, just the length of time was just so difficult. And the drugs, the ICU psychosis is real.
Yes.
They just keep giving you drugs and it just becomes insane. People, the doctors and nurses need to realize that being on the ventilator, you don't feel like you're breathing. Your body begins to panic, and that's why your heart rate goes up. Even though you're laying there paralyzed, it feels like you're running a marathon. You're exhausted, but you can't sleep. You're afraid you're going to die. It is the most crazy thing ever being on a ventilator.
Yeah.
It does not feel like you're breathing. It feels like you're suffocating. This is like an impossible situation. And if your lungs are damaged like mine, they have to perform suction, constantly,
Yeah.
maybe every 15 minutes or more. And for those of you who don't know what suction is, they stick a tube down your throat, down the ventilator. You can feel it in your lungs. They're trying to clear the airway so you don't suffocate even more. It is the most awful thing, but you beg for it because you can't breathe. The ventilator itself is attached by like a dog collar. It feels like it's strangling you the whole time. It feels like somebody's hands are around your neck. You have a hole cut in your throat where the tube goes down. It's constantly having to be cleaned, moving it around. In the middle of the night, you're paralyzed and they just come in and start flopping you around like a fish, cleaning you. You have no control. They're having personal conversations about life and you're just laying there, powerless. It feels violating. They do arterial blood draws, which is a big needle. Even though you're paralyzed, you can still feel everything. It is awful. Arteries are wrapped with nerves. The nerves light you up like a Christmas tree. You silently cry and they can't hear you. You can't talk. You can't talk when you have a trach. That time before I beat that damn ventilator were so difficult. I had one nurse believe in me, respiratory therapist. She's the one that convinced everybody that she could get me off the ventilator. The rest of them said I'd live the rest of my life in a nursing home on the vent forever. I heard the doctor say nobody comes off the vent after this much time. But she pleaded with them, and they allowed her to try. Alicia was one of my angels. For those of you who don't know, you have to breathe for 3 days without the ventilator before they will take you off it. She slowly prepared me. You have to imagine your diaphragm is paralyzed. It does not work. Slowly, my body would come back to life, but I had no muscle, none, anywhere. I had to do these weird body jerks to just take a breath. It was agonizing, but I did it. Alicia and the rest of the respiratory therapists got me to beat that ventilator. It was terrifying. I was afraid to go to sleep. One respiratory therapist held my hand all night and promised me he wouldn't let me die. After you beat the vent, you have to go on another machine, and then you have to beat that one. They leave the trach in just in case they have to hook up the ventilator. But what people don't understand, when you have a trach in your throat, it's like breathing through a bar straw. With your diaphragm paralyzed, it's almost impossible. You feel like you're going to die at any second. I eventually beat that too. The doctor had left it in for 7 days. He came in one morning and saw me. I had one eye open. I was barely alive. He finally realized that I won. He rushed to take the trach out of my throat with the team. It was out within 45 seconds. I took my first real breath in over 70 days. That's the day I started getting better. But it was just the beginning. I still had to learn to walk again. I had to learn to breathe. I didn't have anything to eat or drink the entire time. The first sip of water was so amazing. My wife and son moved my arms and legs when I couldn't. I had a friend of mine come in and move my toes and foot so I wouldn't get drop foot. I had so many amazing people save me. It is unbelievable how many people it took to save my life. The doctors, the nurses, the angels that rose to the occasion in the darkness, friends, family, people praying for me that I didn't even know. That's what it takes to make a miracle happen. I don't know why they chose me, but I'm here. I'm alive. I'm fully recovered. It took 3 solid years to learn to walk and do everything all over again. My lungs are fine. I breathe fine. They were going to cut him out and give me a lung transplant, but I was denied because they didn't think I was survived and I wasn't vaccinated. I beat everything. I beat it with a lot of help, a lot of brave people. And there again, you're just a lot stronger than you ever believed. Physically, mentally, spiritually. Your body wants to be whole, you know? You have to believe it. Where the mind goes, the body will follow.
Yes.
Nobody can do it for you. You have to have a strong mind. You have to be patient. Never give up. Those are the things that got me through it.
Drew, I think your story is one of both suffering and an incredible spiritual awakening at the same time. Do you feel like you were being prepared for a higher purpose in your suffering?
I have to.
Yeah.
The near death was a gift. I'll never be the same. In some ways, I feel like my whole life prepared me for this moment, this battle. And I was supposed to come back and tell this story. This needs to never happen again. The medical industry has some cleanup to do.
Oh, yes.
You never realize, that you're putting all your trust in these people. They're just people. They're people caught in a business. They have to do as they're told. I discovered that. My wife discovered that. They're not bad people. They're just caught in a bad system. They can do miraculous things given the opportunity. I tell my story for all of us, for my doctors and nurses too. I am forever grateful to them. I understand. I witnessed what was going on. I witnessed the things that had to be done to save my life, that you have to be super strong to survive. I can't imagine doing these things to people, knowing it was for their best interest. I understand why so many people didn't survive. It is hard. There is value in the suffering, though. I want people to know, instead of thinking about the things you've been deprived of, look at life as you've been given everything. It's not until everything has been taken from you do you realize this. Everything was taken from me. I could not move. I could not speak. I didn't have a shower for like 3.5 months. That first sip of water, you take it for granted, water. Let me tell you, when you hadn't had water in 3 months, it is like heaven. Being able to communicate. Oh my gosh, it's so frustrating you can't communicate.
I can't imagine.
There's just so much that can be learned from this.
Yeah, your story is incredible, Drew, and um, I mean, I'll go. I think this is the most powerful episode that I've ever had, that I've ever done, that I've ever heard. The story is incredible and it needs to be shared with so many. I don't think that there is a doctor or nurse practicing that shouldn't have to sit like you. They should put you in as like required education. Doctors and nurses need to hear your story. This is it's so powerful. And in order for us to practice and care for people appropriately, we should be hearing stories like yours. And I'm so grateful to you that you've taken the time to share with me on a personal level, just as a nurse, to hear this is incredibly powerful. With my listeners as well, I'm so grateful. I hate that we are out of time because I feel like we could talk about this for hours. Like you said, there's so much that we could talk about. In this limited time, you have really made an impact on me, and I know my listeners as well when they hear your story. So thank you so much for taking the time. The story is not going to end here. We're going to find other ways to get your story out there, Drew. I can assure you of that. Any final words?
I'm just very grateful. I'm grateful for all the people that it took to save my life. And life is good.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Drew.
Welcome. Thank you.
Your story is living proof that miracles still happen. It's a reminder that to every listener, that no matter how dark things look, that there is always light. And sometimes healing comes through the very fire meant to destroy us. So to everyone listening, be the advocate, be the voice, be the love that refuses to give up, whether in a hospital, a home, or the broken world that we live in. You can be the miracle someone else is praying for. That is all the time that we have for today, friends. But remember, we are here on the air 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern with a different nurse host daily. You can also catch the encore at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please be sure to tune in and listen to myself and these courageous nurses. As we walk you through all of these hot topics, we will empower you with information and education. We will advocate and we will stand in the gap for you because we are nurses and this is what we do. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton, and you can find me here every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Until next time, be safe, be well, and God bless. Remember, we are in a war for truth. We are putting out a bounty on the real misinformation and exposing the purveyors of propaganda. No topic is off limits as we shine our lights and expose the darkness.
It's time